Welcome along to the Soda Room. On today's show, Nathan Bassett. Welcome along, mate.
It's good to be here.
I'm very excited to have a chat to you because obviously you've achieved so much and you've, taken the plunge back into coach your own side. So let's start with Westies. How's summer going now that you're in that role?
Yeah, look, I've really enjoyed it so far. It's nice to be the boss again and be able to take control of the direction that we're heading in as a footy club. I think, I did ask a lot of questions to find more information because from the outside, Westies looked a little bit like a sort of a death job in football because the future, didn't always look that bright. But the more you dug and the more questions I asked, the more opportunity I saw there. And it's been really cool to see the amount of talent that's there. People don't know who they are, but hopefully they will soon.
You make a good point, Bass, when you said it was a job that a lot of people have gone, well, why would I take it? Why did you take it? What did you see once you started to dig a bit deeper? Yeah,
so, there were a couple of reasons. I moved to Melbourne last year. I didn't feel like I was quite done with the AFL. From a job perspective, the Melbourne job looked like a good one. Like it looked like they could bounce from where they'd been and they'd had, a bit of a down year. I was keen to work with Simon. Simon's a really good operator and I'm really impressed with him as a coach, having worked with him again for 12 months. But in the end, the family didn't want to move over, which it makes sense, and I didn't really want them to move over either. The more we looked at Melbourne, the more I didn't really like the state that much. So I was pretty comfortable and pretty keen to look for an opportunity to get back. So I was really looking for an appropriate job to get back to, and I had a chat with the president, Ali Surgeon, maybe early August, and she was talking more about what sort of coach they needed. She wasn't really talking to me about me being the coach. And then about half an hour into the conversation, I did talk about the potential for me to move back. But, I just thought there was probably some challenges for West and for us for me to work there. But we're able to work them through with a little bit of help from the SANFL, which was good. And, I'm coaching West.
So last year when you were with the D's, Nicole and the kids stayed in Adelaide.
Yes. So
how tough was that?
Yeah, that was it was challenging. It wasn't too bad till the end of January because they were over there a fair bit. And Melbourne were good in terms of flexibility with flights. My family came over a fair bit, but yeah, it was a weird way to live. I house sat. I lived in Airbnbs, so I think I lived in half a dozen different suburbs at different times in Melbourne, and it was just an unusual way to live. And probably at 48, I wasn't ready to move to another state and find a whole bunch of new friends, and I'm too grumpy and old for that.
What was sort of the routine? Because obviously you're going to get back and you clearly want to see the kids and your wife and everything.
Well, I had 10 flights in my contract, which was good, and they had 3 lots of flights each. So they came over every school holidays for a week, and then I would come back every weekend that I could. And there was luckily Melbourne had 3 games here last year, including before a bye, so that was about a 10-day break. So sort of that 7 months between the end of Jan and the end of August, and probably there was we tried to not keep the stints longer than 3 weeks between seeing them, but I was pretty grateful to be able to come back.
So you said obviously you had brilliant success at Norwood, and then you've been in the AFL system. What did you have to get your mindset back into now that you're the number one man compared to where you'd been fitting into the system?
It's more you're setting the program up, so and then you're presenting a lot more, which I like doing. So it's kind of I've had 11 of the last 12 years has been in the AFL as an assistant coach. So I wanted to coach my own team again, probably for a few years. It's hard in the AFL. There's not many teams. So it's good to get an opportunity to be able to coach my own team again and put some of the things you think you've learnt in place and hopefully do a better job than you did last time.
Well, you did a bloody brilliant job last time you were in charge because Norwood was so successful. Because I think you took the Norwood job at 33?
Yeah.
So you would have been young.
Yeah.
What are we now, 48? So you're 15 years on from that young guy who walked into the box the first time.
Yeah.
How do you see things differently now?
Well, I think you know a lot more about football. So, in terms of the technical side of the game, it's certainly a lot more advanced than what I was 15 years ago. You know, I think I'm more emotionally stable 15 years later than I was in my early 30s. So you can handle loss and things going against you and injustice a little bit better. So that, you know, because we've got to be stable. My players don't need to see me yelling at them yet. They've been dealing with a lot of losses in their short footy careers so far. So, you know, we need to learn and grow together so that, you know, we're going to be a better football club.
Let's wind the clock right back now, Bass. I know you're a very talented cricketer at Kenzie's. When you were a kid, were you a better cricketer than footballer or better footballer than cricketer?
I'd still probably say slightly better at football. So, and it depends what better looks like, right? So,
yeah.
You know, there's being in the best 30 footballers in the state, and there's being in the best 30 cricketers in the state. But if you're in the best 30 cricketers in the state, you're still a long way away from doing any good out of it. So, you know, I enjoyed my cricket and I enjoyed playing a lot. Probably enjoyed it more after I retired from footy, to be fair, than when I was a younger person. So, yeah, I think probably football was a safer journey to the top. Describe
Nathan Bassett as a cricketer. Give us an insight to what you were like and what you loved.
Well, I think two different types. So, you know, probably overly conservative as a teenager. I didn't like hated getting out, and then the anxiety of getting out was a real challenge for me. I think, you know, there was a state carnival I played. I reckon I faced about 500 balls for 130 runs. You know, it was pretty slow going. I might go back and play a little bit of cricket again at some stage. You know, I sort of around the state over 40s for a little bit, and now next year I'm eligible for the state over 50s. So we're all getting older. I'm pretty athletic for an over 50. That always gives me a chance. But, you know, like I was pretty passionate about the game and felt like I could see it okay. But, yeah, I think cricket's tough work. Like, to be out in the field all day, it's fatiguing.
If you face 500 balls, you make 100 odd.
Yeah.
That's enormous persistence, patience, and despite you saying with the anxiety, it's a lot of mind control to have that discipline.
It wasn't done in a way that helped me for high performance because, you know, you're too concerned about getting out to be aggressive enough to score runs. So, you know, like it was, you know, I had little periods where I did hit them well, but I had other periods where you disappear into your own head. And that's the thing about cricket and batting is you can disappear into yourself pretty quick, and, you know, you feel, you know, you're confident and you feel great, and then you fail twice, and all of a sudden you see about 25 different ways of how you're going to get out to every ball.
Was there a moment in time where you had to make a sort of conscious decision between the two?
I don't think so. I think it was always easier with football. I mean, I was playing league footy at 17 and, you know, I was still paying my subs to play for Kensington at that stage. So, you know, there wasn't really any conscious decision. It was always going to be football if I was good enough.
Now, weren't you aligned to Sturt because of the boundaries at one point?
Yeah, I live right next to Norwood High. So I was in the Norwood junior development squads, and then they moved, and then I was with in Sturt zone. So I think both my brother and I got traded from Sturt to Norwood.
Tell us what it was like as a young man playing at Norwood, because like you said, you played league footy really early.
Yeah, it was great fun for me. I mean, I was a passionate Norwood person. That was probably my, you know, I'd still consider myself a Norwood supporter above supporting all other teams. So to play, you know, when I started playing reserves, Michael Aish is still training. Craigie's making me follow Aish around at training. Gary McIntosh is my first captain. You know, Craig Barham's still playing. You know, like you're part of that older generation from the 80s, as well as, you know, the changing face of the SANFL in the early 90s. And, you know, I think Matty Primus and I made our debut on the same day for Norwood. And it was a great fun to come in. You know, I'm playing against Port, my first game at Albert, and I'm playing on Darren Smith and Rowan Smith. Scott Hodges is out there, Tim Ginniver, guys that you've just seen heaps of through the, you know, growing up as a football supporter, and all of a sudden you're on the same football ground as them. Craig
Barham, Gary McIntosh, you mentioned. Geez, you would have, as a young bloke, 17, you would have felt reasonably protected. There's some tough nuts in that Norwood lineup.
Oh, yeah, but there was some, you know, I wasn't made of, I wasn't exactly solid. I think I was probably about 75 kilos. The Lycra Guernsey didn't make me look any wider either. So, but, you know, you didn't have any fear. You just went back with a flight and did it because you've always done it and didn't know any better at that stage.
So that was the time when Craigie, because he was working at the South Australian Sports Institute, he introduced, they were like bodysuits, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. So, but they were really heavy material. So as soon as it was above 20 degrees and the sun was out, it was like wearing a wetsuit playing footy. And they sort of, if you grabbed them, You got rubber banded almost, like you couldn't. People would just hang on to them and then sort of yo-yo you back and forth.
Yeah.
So they got ripped a little bit. I was a bit disappointed. I think I lost mine about 10 years ago. I used to use it as a dice roll punishment at Norwood, so that if they had to train in the lycra on a Monday, if they rolled a certain number.
Yeah, because it was. I remember seeing them because they had. You sort of had the normal shorts over them, but it was like a bodysuit. So I imagine the package and everything in there was all pretty squashed. It would have been an unusual outfit.
It was an unusual outfit. You zipped it from the bottom to the top. A lot of people put tape at the top because it rubbed your neck up the top.
Yeah.
But we had it for 2 years, 94 and 95, and then went back to jumpers when Rhodey came in.
I can't believe Gary McIntosh allowed Craigie to do that because I'm sure Macca would have just gone, hang on, this isn't tradition.
Well, Macca was fine. I remember Andrew Jarman coming back to play when he got dropped from the Crows in 94, and he was very anti it, but Craigie still made him wear it. So, I think it's about the only time Andrew's ever worn a short-sleeve jumper on the footy field.
Well, Jar should have been happy because if it was like wetsuit material, it would have kept everything in for him, wouldn't it?
Well, in 94, he was still in pretty good nick. Yeah, and maybe 96, not so good, but he got himself fit in 97.
Obviously, that time at Norwood, you really did well as a young fella. Now, you played in 2 flags in 1 year? Didn't you? Did you play in the 19s and the 2s flag in the same season?
Yes, I played league footy in 94 and played 14 games that year. And, it'd be fair to say I didn't have the best 95. I think I went from the league to the 19s in 8 weeks and then played mainly 19s for the rest of the year. So there was about 3 or 4 of us that played 19s 1 week and then we played in the reserves grand final the next.
The back-to-backs.
Yeah, back-to-backs.
That was almost like Aaron Keating and Brett James when they did that in 97 for the Crows and Norwood.
Yeah, that's slightly better, isn't it? Two league premierships versus that's the last premiership I played in, the 95 reserves flag.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You went to the Demons. Now, I know James Fantasia and them were really keen to get you to Adelaide, but I think Melbourne picked you with the 3rd pick in the first rookie draft.
Yeah.
Did you expect you were going to get to Adelaide? Was Melbourne a surprise?
It was. So I'd missed out. I'd trained with Port for their first list and then wasn't put on their list and then missed out in the draft. And then I met with Reedy and James Fantasia in February and they basically said to me, we actually made a mistake with our last pick. We should have taken you. But Blighty wanted someone sort of left field, so they took him.
Who'd he take?
I think his name was Ben Parker.
Yes, I remember.
And he only lasted he was gone by June maybe.
He was a young kid that played a bit of footy at Stir.
I think he was pretty the most famous thing he was for at the Crows was when his first thing, I think the first time he walked into the club, he said to Bix, what's going on with your hair? And then Bix didn't take that too well as a captain of the footy club. So I did think I'd end up at the Crows. I thought it'd be Port or the Crows because I'd done the pre-season with Port. I'd rolled my ankle, but I still thought it'd be Port or the Crows because all the clubs were saying they weren't going to take interstate rookies. And then, Melbourne took me with pick 3 and Brian Benke, I think, went to North Melbourne a little bit later in the draft.
Had you had much contact with Melbourne?
Not really. Oh, maybe I think they'd come over and met me once before the pre-season draft, and we just had a party at our house, so the place looked like a brothel, like it was horrendous.
So they've come in and seen what was the place just look.
Oh, there's just beer cans and stuff everywhere, right? So just come and sit out in the back porch. It's all good.
You played some pretty good footy at the D's too, didn't you? Before you did your Sternum.
Yeah. So I moved rookie draft. That was the first ever rookie draft.
That's right.
It was late Feb. I wasn't convinced I'd go over, but then I went over the week the season started. I think I was living in a hotel the first 3 or 4 days. I couldn't find a place for me. And then played the first 3 reserves games, got upgraded to the senior list before round 4, nearly played round 4. And then, round 4 I broke my sternum.
Wow. How do you break your sternum? That's a nasty injury.
It wasn't that good. I went in to tackle someone and tackling wasn't a big part of my game. I think because I played the first 3 games at fullback and they're like, oh, he's all right down there. Let's see what he's like in the forward line. Went to make a tackle and I just got hit up the front and then kept playing and then it just went clunk. And then I sort of, they asked me if I could lie down. I said I can't lie down. They asked me if I could stand up. I said I can't stand up. Jeez. So I sort of got off, went down the road to the Epworth to get an X-ray. And they thought it'd just be like a little crack, but it was an overlapping fracture.
Wow.
Yeah, so like that. So the heart surgeon did it. They cut. I've got a zipper down the middle.
Yep.
So they cut me open, they pulled it out, and then they wired it up So the wire's still in there. So every now and again, if I get a shoulder, scan or, they go, do you know about this thing in your chest? I'm like, yeah, I know, it's still there. It's all good.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a bloody significant injury.
Yeah, it was pretty significant, yeah.
And did that essentially, obviously stop you from making your debut because you were right on the edge.
Yeah.
Where did things go from there with that? Because you would be out for a fair time.
Yeah, so I came home for a little bit and then I started to lose a lot of weight when I came home. So I think I lost 12 kilos in a week and a bit. Went to the doctors and then I was diagnosed as type 1 diabetic.
Yeah.
So that was about maybe 4 to 5 weeks after I broke my sternum. So, yeah, that was a fun time.
So you had to obviously administer your own needles and understand that. It must have been quite confronting. How did you get through that and understand then how you had to deal with things?
I think when you're 20, you're not probably maybe male 20-year-old at that stage. You're not the best place to confront how you feel or the reality of what you need to do. So, probably half avoidance, half just however you could cope to get through. So that's what you did, So I think I moved back. Maybe I missed 12 weeks, 13 weeks of footy. Yep. That was pretty emotional when you get diagnosed as diabetic. You don't know if you can keep playing footy. I didn't know much about the illness at that stage. So, yeah, it was sort of a challenging time getting used to knowing what I needed to do to play.
And you could, I imagine, got very good at understanding where your blood sugars are at. Moods, all different things that would have affected, wouldn't it?
No, I didn't get good at that at all.
Oh, really?
No.
Was it?
I think the first couple of years you're in something called a honeymoon period, so you've still got some insulin left in you.
Right.
So it's a little bit easier to manage. And then post that, it gets more challenging. So, it probably took me 6 years, I think, before I moved to something where it gave me a better chance to play at the level that I could.
Obviously, you come back and in 98, you play the first, 10 games or so for the Crows as a kid.
Yes.
Geez, you must have done bloody well for those 6 years to play quality AFL football while you're still understanding your body and the restrictions.
Yeah, and I was playing as the deepest defender, so, running wasn't as important then as what it is now, which was lucky. But, by the end of 2003, I couldn't get through a third quarter without cramping up. So, then I changed into chronologist and, it was good.
So for people that don't quite understand it, when you're playing football at that level, and even if you're not running a lot, you're playing at the highest level possible. So the demands on your body are hugely significant.
Yes.
What was it like, and how did you start to understand how you could cope with it?
The more you test, the more you understand. Yep. So now we've all got, I think most diabetics probably wear CGMs now, which is so much easier. So, I'm wearing one now.
Yeah, right.
A little patch there, which is so much easier to track. You track it on the phone. I think Paddy McCartan was wearing one the last 4 or 5 years of his career. And it does make it a lot easier to track. Probably the second half of my career where I at least gave myself a chance. I was testing each quarter to at least know where I was at. The stress levels of football tended to push your glucose up, whereas other sports like swimming or cycling, you tend to plunge pretty quick.
Well, you did remarkably well because obviously you had a brilliant career and I think 210 games, all Australian, runner-up in the best and fairest, but you did brilliant things. And that first year at Adelaide too, I think you said because you had the diabetes, but there was also some other injuries.
I fractured my scapula twice. Yeah, so I played the first 10 games, fractured my scapula, which was part of a fallout from the sternum injury because it pulled my shoulders forward and then I fell on my shoulder and anyway, it was a rare injury. Yeah. And then I played 3 games back
later in the
team
year.
and then did it 3 weeks before the finals. And then trained, I think I trained the week after we lost to Melbourne in the first week of the final and did one session and they did another x-ray and it was still no good. So they said take the year off.
So you'd obviously become a really integral part in the team in that first half of the year as a kid.
Yes.
And then obviously injury, you got to watch the 98 grand final. What was that like?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, randomly I finished 10th in the best and fairest that year.
Not randomly. That was bloody because you played great footy.
System, right? But well, you don't really know how you're going to feel until afterwards because I know during the game I'm supporting us and, loving it. Yeah. And then you go out into the ground and you congratulate everyone. Then about 10 or 15 minutes later it hits you. It's like, oh, God, I wasn't a part of this. And it sort of, I'd played in the 96 prelim at Norwood where Scott Hodges kicked that goal with 10 seconds to go. And then Norwood won the flag in 97 and I'd been at Melbourne in the twos in 97. So you miss out in 97, you miss out in 98 and you're only 21, but it feels like the end of the world.
Imagine you also think there's going to be lots of opportunities too.
Well, I'm probably good enough with numbers to know I necessarily don't think that because, you know, the premierships don't come along very often. So you never know when that chance is going to come along again. So, you know, I know even having worked with Simon at Melbourne, he had 2 flags by 21 and his next one is 2021. You know, they can be a long way apart in footy and, we never got that opportunity.
Do you remember that first game against Carlton?
Yeah, you're playing fullback in your first game and little you know Silvani has gone forward, so you're playing on Stephen Silvani in your first game of AFL footy at Princes Park. And look, it was great fun. It was really exciting. I mean, you know, Stephen took a few marks in the last quarter, but I did a reasonable job on him, and it was a really good fun contest.
I think you guys you didn't get up, but you only had to wait a week to get your first win. And against Freo.
Yes,
big win too, 90 odd points. You probably didn't have as much to have to do down defence because I think Clay Sampson kicked 6 and Andrew McLeod kicked 6 that game, which would have been bizarre. What was that like?
I guess you're playing your first win. That's nice. I think I was playing on Kingsley Hunter from memory. It was a sunny day. That's about the extent of my memory of that game. I think a mate of mine told me years later because I was like, nah, Kingsley Hunter didn't kick any goals. I mean, he's like, yeah, he did. He kicked one. I'm like, no, he didn't. And then I remember seeing the replay years later and he'd actually, while I was on the ground, pick one up and snap the goal.
You didn't even see it?
I didn't even know, which is probably good because I'd be overly emotional about someone kicking a goal on me. So it's probably better that I didn't know.
Yeah. You would have taken on some pretty big brutes as a young fella. Who was really tough to deal with and what did you learn pretty quickly?
Yeah, I think there was sort of the emotional fatigue of playing fullback when you had to give so much of yourself and you're in so many one-on-one contests. So, you know, to play on, I don't know, the Rockers or Tony Lockett, David Neitz, Matthew Richardson, there was a lot of, you know, there was a lot of those sort of still old school Matthew Lloyd, full forwards, and you didn't really, you know, until Craigie became coach, there wasn't really any help defence. It was you versus your opponent, and you know you might be in 20 one-on-one contests. You know, even on slow plays, no one fills up leading lanes. You know, I try and explain it to defenders now because you're like, well, you didn't have to defend the first lead. You had to defend the first lead, the second lead, the third lead, and then after defending 3 leads, you had to defend the long one-on-one. So, playing fullback was very different then.
How'd you deal with that? Because like you said, there was that mental side of being a defender. Like one split second, one little mistake is a goal. Yeah,
so I generally played front shoulder and would sit way out in front. So, I mean, I'm sure there were players in other eras that did it. It just wasn't that common in the late 90s for players to do that. So, you know, I'd sit maybe 10 metres out in front of my opponent to try and take away the leading lanes and cut off from there, which gave me a chance to compete against faster, bigger people. But it also is quite exhausting because you've got to be on the whole time. You're constantly shifting your position because everything's about a battle for position and giving yourself that higher ground at the start of every contest so that you're in the best spot to, you know, at least give yourself a chance to cut something off.
So I would imagine, and you're dealing with diabetes and understanding your body, so you've bloody got a lot on your plate. Emotionally, it would have been as fatiguing as it was physically, I could imagine, playing that sort of role.
Yeah, I think more emotionally. I mean, probably my level of fitness wasn't fantastic, so that could fatigue me. But it's probably more the emotional toll because you're sitting out in front and, you know, you don't – playing back shoulder is so much more comfortable. You just sit there, you know where your opponent is. They move, you move, whereas you're constantly shifting your feet when you're aggressively front shoulder, but it didn't make any sense for me to stand, I don't know, you're 150 metres away from the ball, right? And we're like, why am I going to stand behind my opponent? It's going to take lots of kicks to get down here. Why don't I get out in front? It gave me some more opportunities to either come forward and help or, you know, if there was pressure on the ball, you know, you're in good shape, but pressure on the ball wasn't as big a priority for midfielders in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, getting the ball seemed more of a priority. So, you know, you had to, make it up sometimes.
That's one thing I really enjoyed when I used to watch you play was you really could see your passion and you wore your heart on your sleeve. Was that something that was always in you from a little fella?
Yeah, sadly, yes. It's probably better that I didn't keep playing tennis. And I think that's the justice part and dealing with losing that you've got to get better at as you get older. And I think each, coaches can make it easier. I think I was still living in my first half of my career, you're still in an era where if you get 2 goals kicked on you, there's a good chance you're going to get to the bench and you're not going to get off the bench again in the day, whether it's your fault or not.
Yep.
I think now you feel you'd feel a whole lot safer as a player because you just don't sit anyone.
Yeah.
Whereas getting sat on the bench, we've all got a couple of games in our career where you're like, oh, the coach just wrecked my game.
Yeah.
He just sat me for the day.
You just said before when you said sadly in terms of, I don't know, emotional stability or so when you're playing, for example. Do you think that sometimes that got the better of you?
I think your strengths are your weaknesses and you're walking that fine line, and I needed the emotion because that gave me my greatest strength, which was my competitiveness. But when you tip over and then it impacts your ability to think, then you're impacting the team as well. So, I think every player has their super weapon in a way, like what's their key weapon, but it's also can become their greatest weakness as well. And sometimes players will lean on it and think, oh, well, this is what I do really well. I'm a really nice kick, but then they try and overkick and they'll try and force things in there. And it's like, well, you're not a good player when you kick like that.
When things got tough and if things hadn't gone quite right, how did you deal with that? Even not just in a game, but just mindset during the week and that sort of thing.
No, you'd chew yourself up. Part of it is you try and pass on responsibility because you take so much of it yourself, and you feel responsible for the team losing, or there's some games it's hard to forgive yourself and move on, and that's what when you're playing that key defensive role, for me, after doing it for 7 or 8 weeks, it feels like a lifetime because each week you go, okay, I know who I got this week. This is going to be hard work. Yeah. So certainly the back half of my career, I enjoyed it a lot more because I didn't have to do that.
When you were hard on yourself, was that thoughts, self-talk, that sort of thing? Like
I think so. Yeah, I think we can all get pretty negative on ourselves, and I'm no different. And probably, I could be worse in terms of being my own worst critic around how good I was. And then there's always that challenge of, when I look at myself athletically compared to the other guys, basically the 18-year-olds would come into the club and never lifted a weight, and 3 months later they're lifting heavier than me. I wasn't the strongest guy going around, so, didn't have the nicest looking left foot kick going around. So, you can feel inferior, or you get that little bit of imposter syndrome when you're playing as a fullback, and you're like, why am I playing on this huge guy? Can't I go and play on this other guy over here? Or then against a team like Brisbane, they only had huge guys or gun on ballers in the forward line. It's like, I don't like any of these matchups.
When you were going along with the Crows, who called the matchups? Was a lot of that predetermined, no doubt?
The back end of my career was probably more me managing them on game day. Certainly, I remember there was one game, and it was against Collingwood late in the season in 2003, and for whatever reason, the coaches wanted me on Anthony Rocker and Ken on Jared Malloy, and Ken and I was like, "Can we swap? Like, I don't want to play an Anthony Rocker; he's way bigger than me." Yeah. And Ken wanted to play an Anthony Rocker, so we kept swapping, and then the runners kept coming out and giving us a message to swap back, and then. By half time, I'm furious. And then it's like, anyway, I ended up getting dropped before the finals 2 weeks later. And after, I think I was when Craigie took over, and I remember the first game, I reckon Ben Rutten got moved to fullback in Craigie's first game as coach, and David Neitz kicked 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. And it's like, I know what's going to happen here. I'll be on David Neitz soon enough. But Craigie just left him there. And I enjoyed my footy much more after that.
And that gave you that ability to play as that sort of more floating tall?
Well, more as a, I think my key strengths were my ability to defend, but also help out and win the ball back. So, my intercept numbers were really strong. I didn't know that at the time. I only looked them up a couple of years ago. I only started measuring intercepts in the AFL in 2001. So I think I was 7th in the AFL between 2001 and 2008 in intercepts. But
You're before your time, Bass.
yeah, well, I was. I actually did realise how much I was underpaid. I was like, oh, that guy would get so much money now.
Have a look at Jeremy McGovern. You know, all those sorts of boys that they made a career out of that.
Yeah.
But that's what you were doing.
Yeah, so I mean, and that was the nice thing is you're able to. I played on a variety of different players after that, from taller to smaller, and you know I was good at playing on, I think, not the very best tools and not the very best smalls, but I could pick off all the guys in the middle
And influence the game more.
Yeah, absolutely, and help out the team more defensively versus, you know, it was probably more a one-on-one defending game till maybe 2004, and then you know from 2005 to 2008 it was more team defence, and then you know Ross Lyon's sort of defence changed the game a bit in 2008.
But you guys had a lot of, well, if you determine success as winning a flag at Adelaide, you didn't, but around that time then your team was in pretty good shape.
It was okay. Yeah, we were okay. I don't think we weren't. I don't think we beat Brisbane, or maybe we beat them once during that period. But they always felt like they were a fair bit better than us. But we were okay in 2002. I think, you know, we played Collingwood in a prelim, and Tyson got knocked out just before halftime.
Yep.
And then Andrew McLeod got injured early in the third quarter, and then Collingwood ran away with it. But we were okay. So clearly 05, 06 we were a lot stronger.
Just on those two, then I suppose 05, 06, those prelims against West Coast. Each of the three prelims that you had, you were in all the games. Yeah,
especially 06, yeah.
Well, I think you're 22 points up at half time in 06. They just feel like those games got away?
We're probably a better team in 05. I mean, if you look at it now, you'd go, the draw was pretty unfair in 05. Like we played a Sunday against West Coast in Western Australia, and then our first final was Saturday. And we'd finished top. So, you know, to have a 6-day break, we lost Roo for a week for suspension in the game against West Coast. And then Nathan Bock pulls out sick the morning of the game, and Trent Henschel has to go back to playing Nick Rewald. And we have a bad second quarter. I think we conceded, because we weren't really a great scoring team, we conceded maybe 6 goals straight in the second quarter, and then peg it back to even in the last quarter, lose to St Kilda. And we should have done better in that game. I think, 06 is harder to live with, and more so, you know, for me. I mean, I got really sick 2 weeks before the prelim, so I played the first final, beat Fremantle pretty comfortably, and then I went over to the All-Australian dinner on the Monday night, and then so I got violently ill at the All-Australian dinner before. I didn't actually get him. I think I just did my presentation, but I wasn't up there at the end. And anyway, I lost 4 kilos that night. And
was it the meal at the All-Australian dinner?
I don't think so. No, I think it was lunch in Adelaide. I don't know.
Oh, so you had lunch here,
flew over, and then.
Geez, Bass, can you remember where you had lunch?
I can, but I don't want to. No, I don't want to put them under the bus.
It wasn't you cooking.
No, it wasn't me.
You went out for lunch.
Yeah, we were did somewhere in West Lakes.
All-Australian dinner. So you were actually throwing up at that point?
No, I collected it, and then I went to my room, and then there was
really struggled.
I wrote an apology note for the cleaners in the room. That was not pretty.
Really?
Nah, I was terrible. Yeah, it was a bad night.
Both ends?
Yeah, it was a bad night.
All Australian. You're playing great footy. Going into prelims and all that,
and you lose 4 kilos in a night, and you play the prelim at 83. I haven't been close to. I would never been close to 83 kilos again.
Wow.
And I'd only put on 1 kilo again by the time we got to the game. So I played the game at 83 kilos, and I normally played around 86, 87. And but I was still, by half time, I was actually felt really crook. And I played the second half, and I was terrible in the second half, but I couldn't run. Like it's one of those ones that's hard to live with, because you feel like you cost the team the game. And if you look back, I should have done things a lot differently, because I couldn't get my blood glucose in control for the 2 weeks, because I couldn't eat because my sugars were running high, but then I couldn't put it back on any weight. So if I knew now, I just would have injected way more insulin and eaten more. But I was, I was only 9 years into being a diabetic.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, my dad had a stroke, and you take a lot of responsibility for things that maybe were out of your control.
Yeah. Gee, that's a really tough.
It was a crap week. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand. How was Dad after that?
That was really the end of Dad as we knew him. So, he lived on for another 18 years, but he was very different after that. So, yeah.
Did he love watching you play footy?
Yeah, he was always there. So he was a super competitor. And I think he'd done a 58K bike ride the day before, and it was horrendous conditions down south. So yeah, and I guess the thing that you don't realise is, he was 20. I was 29 when he had the stroke, but I wasn't probably at the stage where there was a lot of questions that I should have asked him that I never did. And then didn't get to ask him because he was pretty quiet. Like, he was adopted and sort of fostered and brought up in a different era where he wasn't a big talker, but he was always there for you.
You said he was very competitive.
Yes.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, clearly. Is that where your competitiveness came from?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Dad played rugby at a reasonable level in New Zealand. He played every other sport. He was a good squash player here. So, yeah, it was definitely from Dad.
Yeah. You and Scott growing up together, who had the better of each other physically growing up?
He was definitely better from sort of 15. I remember we bought a bench maybe when I was 15, and it was one of the old ones where if you took one weight off one side, the bar would just fall off because it was too narrow.
Yep.
And Scott put two 15-kilo plates on there on either side early days, and I'm like, I can't even lift this. I can't bench 50 kilos. And then he just put more and more plates on. So I was like, well, I never did any weights at home because I couldn't lift the bar.
And he loved his weights.
He loved it. He just got stronger and stronger, right? He's benched, I don't know, heaps, 160 or something.
Yes.
I can't even get to 100.
At the end of 08, were you ready to stop?
Yeah, I think I was ready to stop. Like, you start running out of people to talk to at the footy club as you get older. I did want to play well enough though to earn another contract, which I think I was in a place. I remember talking to Craigie maybe around 21, going, "We'll get another contract." He's like, "Yeah, it'll be okay." And then I'd say, "All right, well, I'm going to retire," because I wanted to be good enough to be able to play on. Because there's lots of players that retire, but did you really retire? You're told it was over, right? So then you decide to get in first and go, "Oh no, I broke up with you." It's like, well, it's not quite true. Yeah, I mean, probably now with the money in it, no one retires, right? So you just keep playing until they push you out.
That's interesting. I like that though, because you knew you could go out on your terms genuinely.
Yeah, yes. And I also thought, I was probably looking at list management going, well, there's 4 other guys my age. They're all better footballers than me. There was Tyson Edwards, Andrew McLeod, Mark Rashudo, Simon Goodwin. I'm like, you've got to keep those 4 before you keep me, right? So I don't know if having 5 33-year-olds would have been a good option. Actually, no, Rhea was done by then. It's just Andrew, Tyson and Goody.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
But clearly, as you said, Craig, you got another contract.
I think so, yeah. Pretty confident about that.
At least you can go on your own terms.
That's right.
What were you most proud of in terms of playing before you went into the coaching from yourself?
From even post-career, supporters know that you tried. I could have done more to prepare myself better to play on weekends, but certainly I gave what I had on game day. And I think I connected with supporters and spoke honestly. So, I think you really leave people with how you made them feel as much as anything. And I made people feel something.
Well, I think one thing, it was always clear looking externally on there was the passion of how much you love playing footy, and obviously you loved your footy club, was evident. And fans and members love nothing more than that.
Yeah, well, and I think, the supporters saw that didn't like losing.
Yep.
So I think the majority liked what I tried to get. There's a few that go, "Oh, he's a crazy loon." And I get that. Like I was a crazy loon at times, but it was the best version of myself at that stage of my life.
That's pretty satisfying. Bass, when you became a coach, those 4 years you had at Norwood, so was it 2010, 11, 12, 13?
Yes.
Grand final in 2010.
Yep.
Prelim against Port in 2011 and the 2 flags.
Yes.
I think your winning rate was about 74%. How did you go about it, and what was important to you when you set up Norwood? Because I think you took over and they were 7th.
Yeah, there were some good people there. at the footy club. I think we set we set some values and we stayed pretty well connected to them. I think I was able to listen to the players well, and then I did have some good coaches around me that were able to help me through to learn more about the game. I think particularly post 2011, like 2010, sort of bring really what the Crows looked like in 08 to what Norwood looked like in 2010.
And what was that? What were the sort of key elements of?
I think we were reasonably defensively organised, but other than that, I don't think I really made enormous strides in terms of adjusting what the SANFL looked like. I think in 12 and 13 we did probably a little bit more in terms of increasing our rotations, better organised defensively across the whole team, and pretty consistent in terms of like being able to make adjustments too from 1 week to the next. I think we pretty much played the same way in 10 and 11, whereas we were able to make some more adjustments in 12 and 13, depending on who we're playing, that gave us a better chance to win.
That foundation that you built in those times obviously put you in great shape because you were the dominant team of the competition for that period, particularly in 12
the last
13.
2 years, yeah.
An ideal game, a Norwood game, what was that based on around that 12 and 13 when you essentially were far and above the best team in the comp?
We just owned the game in our half. So the ball lived in our half and it stayed there until the umpire ran it back to the middle of the ground. So, I think that was the strength of the team. Our tall people brought the ball to the ground. Our small people pressured the ball. Our defenders set up well behind it, and we had a strong midfield.
Yeah.
And we had good young people coming through the footy club. So we had great depth of players.
From talking to a lot of players that played under you around that time, they really loved your honesty, your openness. And I was speaking to Ratio Fantasia the other week, and he said when you gave him his debut, he said, well, Bass came down straight away after and said, well, you're not going to play a worse game than that. And he said, I know he wasn't being mean. He was just being completely honest, and I knew where I stood.
You do your best you can, and you're honest with people, and you show that you care. Yeah. And I was very passionate about Norwood, but also wanted us to be better, a better version of Norwood. I thought Norwood had been a team that had been good, but had sometimes settled for good and enjoyed the good a bit much, and not been ruthless enough to keep being a powerful footy club that is relentless in terms of winning, like a Port Adelaide had been, or a Centrals had been in the first half of the 2000s. Norwood had never had that era.
Could you teach that competitiveness and passion that you had? Could you instill that and teach that into the players?
It's more who you reward as a coach. Or do I reward the combativeness, or do I reward the skill? And then where's the crossover? And then what balance does the team need? So, and I think the great thing about the SANFL, I go to West and I don't know any of these players. The only player I knew was Tom Scully when I started. But then you start seeing opportunities and, this player can play here, or this player can do this. And then you're painting a vision for that individual player of what they can achieve in the role that they're in. And all of a sudden you get players that have success. Even Balin O'Brien, who just went to Port. 2 years ago I met Norwood in sort of my gap year out of the AFL, and I see this guy at training. I'm like, who's this guy in the under 18s? Like, he's interesting, and it's like, he's playing as a forward ruck. He's from Eyre Peninsula. I'm like, he looks like a stopping defender to me. And then by halfway through the season, we had him playing as a stopping defender, and he's doing a great job of it. And went from a kid that really wasn't getting a game at under 18s level to playing some league footy by the back end of last year, and now he's on an AFL list. So, it's your ability to see something in people and go, okay, well, maybe that person is better in this sort of role because that's more achievable for them.
Now, Bass, that doesn't come natural to a lot of people to be able to see that, right? So, for an example, because this is where I'm really intrigued. So, what did you see in Balin that you go, you know what? He's better off down that end.
Yeah.
What was it?
High speed. Yeah. But I saw like a competitive person that would do whatever you want, and your personality makes a big part of, or plays a big part of what end of the ground you should play at. If sometimes those people that are super competitive and don't want to let you down, they're not very good goal kickers. because as soon as they get in front of goals, they're anxious about, they don't want to let you down, right? They're real nervous about doing the right thing, so they tend to miss a lot. Whereas the person that's a bit like, "Here, look at me, I can't wait till I kick this goal and start celebrating with people," they're very good at kicking goals. But if you put that person in defence, all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, I'll take some marks and get some kicks." But if a person kicks a goal on me, it's not the end of the world. Whereas that other person, that Balin O'Brien, or he reminded me a little bit of Miles Bergman. They've got that anxiousness where they don't want to let you down, and they'll give everything they've got to try and stop the opposition.
It's a good insight. I like that. That's fantastic. When you won that first flag there in 2012, after all that hard work, I mean, you're still a new coach, you're still a young man. What was that feeling like?
That was great. I mean, I've been a Norwood supporter my whole life. I'd seen Norwood win one flag really since I was 7 in 97. So it was great to see people happy at the footy club. And, for those players to remain connected now for the rest of their lives. It's the best way for players to stay connected really is to play in a premiership together, because they've got good reasons to catch up and we'll watch this game and, get around each other again.
The disappointment of some of those losses for Adelaide when you got really, really close, does that play a role into the way you went about coaching as well?
I think it can play a role in the urgency of your desire to win. I think once you've won, it sort of takes the monkey off the back or whatever, and you can let go of the result a little bit more. So I think I'm in better shape this time, because I think sometimes needing to win isn't a necessarily good thing, as much as people go, everything, winning's everything. Like, we've got to teach our players how to be better and how to communicate with each other in a way that's going to give us the best chance of success. And you've sort of, I feel like I'm in a lot better place now to be more emotionally stable to communicate with the players a whole lot better.
Those two flags in 12 and 13, I think North Adelaide and West kicked 7 goals between them.
Yep.
One kicked 3 and one kicked 4.
Yep.
That is a remarkable defensive effort.
Yeah, I think we conceded 15 goals in 4 finals. The defence was very good, but so were the mids and forwards that were a big part of it. And if you look at the defence in 2012, there was, Alex Georgiou was 22. Michael Chippendale was playing his first year of league footy. He was 20 maybe. Jace Bode was the third tall. He's only 5'11". Andrew Kerwin was playing his 10th game of league footy as a halfback flanker. It was still a really young team in lots of places, but they stuck together and they're a great little team.
I know that even 3, 4, 5 years after you'd gone, there was still talk in Norwood about how Nathan Bassett coached us and how it went. So the legacy you left there was there well after you were gone. Yeah. Were you well aware of that was still around the place?
I'll look a little bit, and it can be good but not so good as well. Like, it's got to be more than one person, footy club, and you've got to share that load. And if I look back, I needed to develop my assistant coaches better than what I did the first time I coached, because you're trying to this is your baby, you take control, and sometimes you do too much and you don't give other people enough opportunities, I guess. So you're hoping to leave a legacy that was going to last and give the club probably a longer period of success than what they had. But, they're in a pretty good place now at Norwood, where they've been pretty good the last 5 years. I think, Twig Rawlings did a great job to probably reinstall solid work ethic and consistency within that footy club, so that, they've been consistently competitive since then.
Obviously had a lot of time in the AFL system. What was it like, and how did you see that progression that you made through that time?
As a coach?
Yeah, assistant coach.
Oh, you learn a lot more about the game and probably how to communicate and manage up. I think the biggest challenges for an assistant coach is how you manage up to the senior coach and footy manager, and then how you're that intermediate, right, between what the coach wants, the footy manager wants, and what the players need. And, sometimes you're getting a message where you're like, well, I can't say it to the player like you've just said it, so I've got to stay somewhat true to it, but I've got to give it in a way where you're a chance to actually be successful and achieve that. So, I found middle management much more stressful than this role right now as senior coach, even though there's more responsibility. The anxiety of trying to please, but also give information that's actually achievable for the players can be really difficult sometimes as an assistant coach.
So essentially, you're a middleman, like you're interpreting that, but I suppose you're using then the psychology you build over that time to determine the best way to get that outcome?
The best way to get that outcome. And the other probably challenge in the AFL is, you've got the top-end players at the footy club, and it's who are their influences, and then how much can I influence them as an assistant coach. So I think at Port I was able to build really good relationships with guys like Charlie and Robbie. When I took over the forward line, coaching backs is a lot easier. They're just easier coaching defenders. But I really enjoyed coaching Charlie and Robbie, and that was probably the challenge for me when I started that role, is how am I going to build a relationship with some people that are some pretty big personalities, and how do I get change in behaviour from players that are very good but also get told they're very good a lot, and I'm going to tell them this isn't so good, or this is a way you can do this better. Like that's an easier conversation as a senior coach than it is as an assistant coach, because you just wield less power.
You got so close as a player at Adelaide, and then you get so close as an assistant coach at Port.
Yep.
Prelims. What do you learn from losses in those sort of games?
Oh, it hurts. There's a lot of work to get back there. I mean, the shortened season of 2020 was, we had a really good year, and I thought Ken did a great job in that COVID year to keep the players focused on getting better and to keep improving. And we're a goal away from getting to a grand final in shortened quarters, 16-minute quarters. And that's footy. When it's only a small margin, there's not much in it. Yeah, the next year when we get blown out the water in the first 10 minutes of the prelim, I mean, that's a tough one to take, and it's also a tough one for the players to come back from. It was always going to be very challenging in 22 to see how the players recovered from 21. I remember, sort of trying to get on the front foot with the coaches and players, and we all met again before the best and fairest, because it is one where, there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with losing prelims, and you don't know it until later on. I know even with the Crows in 05 and 06, once we lost the prelim in 05, it's like, that's all right, we'll get the next year. Losing that prelim in 06, it's like, we'll get the next year. But then a couple of months into pre-season, you actually start to realise, now there's some cracks here, and there's some real emotional heartache and baggage that went with losing in 06. And I think that was similar to what happened at Port in 2021.
When you're delivering messages to players, and one thing everyone I know that's worked with you and you've coached, they said your honesty is so good. You have that empathy and ability to let them know. Is it hard delivering some messages, knowing that you have to deliver them, that they may hurt, or because you're not sugarcoating stuff? No,
you have to. So it's not. Every conversation is it's challenging, but you have to do it, because it's a responsibility to the next generation of players that are coming through. People look at the ins and outs of an SANFL club, and there's always more outs and ins, but that's because there's always more players coming. There's under-18s kids that are always coming, and some of them are going to be good enough to play league footy. You have to have those conversations. You just have to, because otherwise you're holding up the next generation of players, and then you start losing players that you really need. So, even last night, you're having a conversation with a player and going, well, maybe it's time to not play anymore, because the injuries that he's had, it's something that I don't think he can come back from, and maybe he should go back and play footy where he can enjoy it for a period of time, rather than trying to put himself through this constant pain of come back, re-injure himself, train up, and not really ever give himself a chance.
As you're saying all this and talking about that honesty, I could imagine that coaching at any level is no place for a people pleaser.
Well, no, I mean, it can be harder, right? But I think if you're honest with people, then you can always maintain a pretty good relationship, you know, and I think there's not many players, and coaching in the SANFL, you end up ending a lot of careers or SANFL careers, you know, you cut a lot of younger people, but I don't think there's a player that I've sort of done that with that I wouldn't be able to talk to pretty comfortably now, you know, which I think is a good thing. And not every relationship ends up great at the time. You know, there's a couple that, you know, my first stint of coaching at Norwood, I should have done better. But we're still perfectly good to be able to talk about it now and you know, have adult conversations. Because
particularly grand finals, you've had to make tough calls and they last forever in people's minds.
Yeah, they do. I know even, you know, you had a ratio in here. I picked a ratio for a grand final and dropped Peter Bampton. And it's, how do I do this conversation? I don't know if I should have done it to them at the same time because, you know, I guess a ratio didn't play the final before because he was come back from injury. He'd been injured at training a month before. But it was, for a Raz at that stage, it was a contact injury, right? Someone just tackled him. But, you know, the guy that I dropped, Peter Bampton, he was 17 and he looked like he had a really, you know, looked like he's going to get drafted and he's playing league footy and playing good league footy and he's going to be a, you know, there's lots of premierships in front of him. But it didn't work out that way. You know, the next year didn't go his way. He started the year in the league side. He didn't play in the 14 team either. Probably played at Norwood for another 5 or 6 years, never got back to playing in a senior premiership. And he's one of the best blokes you'll ever meet. And you're like, well, you feel like you cost him that game, but you also know that you did it because you thought that was what would give the team the best chance to win that day. And it was no, you know, I remember telling Matty Panos at the start of that final series I wasn't going to pick him because he'd been injured the back half of that year with his hamstring, and he was probably better than a couple of guys that were in that side. But the risk of him getting injured was more likely to cause us a loss than the upside of him kicking goals. Anyway, he ended up being one of the best players in the SANFL for the next 10 years. But you're trying to make the decisions that are right for the team on that week, and that's your responsibility, not just to the players, but to the whole football club.
Bass, there's a few things that I was thinking about with your career that I always wanted to ask. One was the situation with Andy Collins in the race that day. And we all, you know, knew from the outside that something had gone on and Jace Bode was involved and so forth. A little rumble in the tunnel, essentially. What can you tell us what happened from your point of view?
Well, I mean, I was walking off the ground at halftime, and like Andy and Jace had this thing. I think Jace had maybe yelled at Andy on the way off at towards the end of the game in 2012 grand final because he'd been punched in the head and bleeding, and anyway the guy got 3 weeks. But as Jace is bleeding, Jace can be a bit fiery. He sort of said something to Andy on the way off about the way his players have behaved, and then Andy said something about Jace in the media afterwards, and so they'd sort of held a bit of a grudge. And then, I had a couple of players that could get a bit feisty at each other, and then I think a couple of them were arguing at halftime, and then Andy Collins has started saying something to him, and sort of aggressively. And then I've run up to Andy and go, mate, why are you talking to my players? And then he's like, don't you talk to me. Don't you talk to me. And it's like, all right, we'll handle this in the race. So anyway, I bumped into him, but he's way stronger than me. He had me in a headlock in about 3 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. It was kind of, but then all his players were gone. All our players were coming down the race. And then I think Jace jumped over the top and gave him one. And then, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a bit awkward, comfortable. And then we tried to cover it up a little bit, and then West went the full honest policy, and that worked so well for us. So, but Andy, I like Andy. I thought he did a really good job at West. He got the players, he actually got players to stick at the club, and they didn't quit. They stayed there. I didn't love his game plan at the time, but he'd probably been more defensive to start with just so they didn't get blown away. Maybe just stuck there a little bit long. But he didn't coach like that when I saw him coach at Williamstown. And we've had some conversations since then, and I really like him, and I love the fact that he got those Westies players to stay there because they weren't the most talented group, but he's probably the person most responsible for that team that won in 2015 through the work that he did. And he's actually the longest serving coach in West's history, which is only 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. For one stint.
Yeah. Bass, I know your passion and how much you love the game. Best sprays you've given, have you had to give a few at times?
Look, I don't think you ever have to. I don't think you ever have to. Like I have. I don't think you have to.
Did you have to pick your moments? Because it's a bit like, when you're a parent and you go...
Yeah, you should. Yeah, absolutely. And then it becomes a trick, right? Because it really is just a trick, and you're trying to impact the way the players are emotionally invested in the game. And clearly when we played, it happened more often. Now the power in it or the value in it, I don't know if there's as you can much more sparingly. Certainly the players wouldn't have heard me at this stage at West get like angry, like I'm loud. I coach loud, but I'm not, certainly haven't been angry at them at all. So, or haven't expressed any anger at them at this stage, and they certainly don't need that. And that's why I'm probably looking to more coach from the bench. This year I've never coached from the bench, but I'm looking to coach more from the bench because biggest part of coaching on game day really is reassuring the players that everything's going to be okay. Yeah. They've got a scoreboard happening. They're in a physical contest. They're fatiguing. A lot of times, half of coaching jobs just telling them it's going to be okay. Just keep trying. Keep doing what you do well.
So that's something obviously you've evolved in your time now where you think, particularly at West where they are at the moment, that being on the bench is probably the best place for you at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think for younger teams, I mean, you get to have a whole lot more conversations as well. So, when you're in the coach's box, you talk to your other coaches and you can make some tactical moves, but you're not going to connect with your players nearly as often. So, you're going to have 4 to 5 times as many conversations with players on the bench than you are from the coach's box. So, every time a player comes off in an AFL game, let's say I'm coaching the defenders, there's always one defender off the ground. I'll try to talk to that player every time he comes off the ground. So I might have 4 to 5 conversations a quarter to the defenders because that's how many rotations the defender's going to have in that quarter. But on the bench, I can talk to a whole bunch more players now as a senior coach and just let them know that, we're going okay, or these are the adjustments we've got to make and be there. And you get a whole lot more when you can make eye contact with someone, when, you can see their physical movements and gestures and versus, being on the other end of a telephone.
How much do you think about footy when you're not coaching? Can you switch off?
Yeah, I don't think I'm an overthinker about football at the moment. It's towards a pointy end of lawn bowl season, right? So, it's still working. I'm still transitioning from bowls to football. Yeah.
Bass, what do you love about coaching now you're going back into your own team?
I think the main thing is your ability to develop players in a place where they can feel really comfortable and safe and grow into valuable young men in their community and have a footy club they can call their own. Like that's the most special thing about really the best time I've had in footy in my lifetime is the 4 years I coached Norwood. And if I can do some of that for West Adelaide, not just for the players but for the people at the footy club as well, that we've never really had a successful era. They've had successful moments, but not an era where, they turn up and what you're going to get from your players, then that'd be something that, I'd like to be able to do for West. Yep.
What's been the best thing you've personally got out of footy, you reckon?
I think being able to have opportunities to influence, whether it be, being on the Crows Foundation when I was there or working, I did a lot of, ran the schools programs. I did a lot of work with, worked in juvenile justice centres and prisons and now I get an opportunity to influence young footballers and help them enjoy their footy and learn more about their footy and also learn how to create a good footy club, and the foundation of a good footy club, which is what we're setting in place right now in West Adelaide. Like that's you're pretty lucky to be able to do that. And even, coach my son's team for 4 years. That was great fun. Get to see those kids enjoy footy. Now I've got 3 of them, those kids that I coach, they're in the under-16s at West. There's a couple in the under-14s at West. You're part of their football journey.
What's 2026 hold in store for West as you rebuild a club? It's a big challenge. And many people haven't been able to do it.
No, well, I think we're going to be a lot better. So I think there was some, I reckon, relatively easy wins in terms of just a a stronger training program. Like I liked Adam Hartlett. I think he's a good person. You know, I was half interested in trying to help him out when I finished up at Port. But I think, you know, the way we train them is a way where they're going to be able to grow and be a little less injured. And then our high performance was a place we need to put a lot of work into. So, you know, we've brought in, you know, 2 really good people into our high performance team that are managing a good program. And now our players are training. When I started, you know, there'd be 15 to 20, you know, sometimes 25 in rehab for the first few months. Now there's, you know, like 7 or 8 which is out of 65 is pretty significant. So, you know, our guys just need to be on the park, and then they'll work out whether they can play footy or not. But I'm pretty confident they can play footy.
Bass, one thing, when you had that really successful period at Norwood when you were coaching, I know a lot of the boys said that what you were implementing, how you were setting up, you're structuring that no one else was doing, and you were ahead of time, and you probably brought a lot of that out of Adelaide.
Yeah.
Now that you're coming back into SANFL and it's evolved enormously since that time, is this another sort of situation where a lot of what you've learnt in the past decade or so you can start to now implement even at a SANFL level again?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's still places where I was coding the grand final yesterday, and there's places where some opportunities in the AFL haven't really fed into SANFL game style just yet. So, look, I do think there's some things that we will bring into play for our team. Like if I can't out kick and mark teams like Sturt and Glenelg, so we can't play the same way they play. We have to play a different way, and it's no different when I started at Norwood. We couldn't out kick and mark Centrals. We had to find a different way to play to give ourselves a better chance to succeed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is it hard to get that balance right? Because obviously the resources and the commitment and the time and all that is completely different. You come straight out of more than a decade at that AFL system.
Yeah.
Is it tough then to work out what you can and can't do in a SANFL system?
Well, it's remembering, you know. But I think the most important thing we can do at West is build a sustainable program that keeps players playing at the footy club. Our oldest player is 26. You know, a couple a bit older than that have been training, and I'm hopeful they'll play. But really, our oldest player at the moment is 26. So we need to build a sustainable program where the players can come back each year and go, okay, yeah, this is okay, harder than playing local footy, but I'm also getting better coaching. I'm getting better purpose in terms of my high performance. I'm getting stronger and fitter and faster because players will reach their peak in their late 20s, and we don't have any players in our late 20s that are reaching their peak. So we need to keep our players at the footy club longer so that, you know, in 3 years' time, our average age is a year and a bit older than what it is, because right now we're the second youngest list in the AFL, in the SANFL, and the probably least experienced list. So we need our players here longer so that they've played more games and they're just more experienced and they're going to be better. You know, so too many players leave the SANFL at 24, 25, but we need to create an environment that gives them something different than money.
Yeah. That's actually a very, very good point now, isn't it? Because you can't compete financially.
You can't. And I think the challenge with interstate recruits now is you're very difficult to recruit out of Victoria unless they want to get drafted, because there's so much money in local Victorian footy. So there's a lot of New South Wales kids, because the pathways aren't great for New South Wales kids. There's a lot of those kids coming down now to play in South Australia. So, yeah, you keep looking for some of them to top up what you have. But, yeah, recruiting's harder, right? So you've got to develop your own.
What's the most exciting thing about 2026?
Oh, well, I think when we get to play, that's only a couple of weeks away. But seeing these guys that have had a tough time of, you know, I think West have finished last 6 of the last 7 years or something like that. You know, for them to have some belief that the way we're going to try and play is going to take us forward. Coaching post the loss isn't too bad. You know, like some of the best reviews you have are after a loss, because the players are most open to listening. Now, I don't want to have too many great reviews this year, but you know, you get an opportunity, because what do you expect as you know, in my time as a player, what did you expect from the coaches? Is they just lay the blame, right, and go, oh, you didn't, you know, and they yell at you and you get punished or whatever it is. And the players still sort of half come in, thinking the worst. And you're like, no, you did all these things right. These are good things. Like the reality of a win is 52% good, 48% not so good. The loss is 48% good, 52% not so good. It's only a few different things in a game that make the difference in the scoreboard, and sometimes it's out of our control. So, what did we control? What did we do well? That's fine. Sometimes it's just a talented bloke in the forward line that picks it up a couple of times and kicks a goal that makes all the difference.
You sound like you've got far too much logic here, Bass. It's actually a lot of what you're saying. Seriously, is making sense to being realistic of what the difference is. How do you go about coaching, which must excite you? Where you're going?
Well, it's good. You just, every now and again, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right? So, it'd be nice for the luck to roll your way a couple of times. But you know what? I've had a couple of times in my life where I've got to do that. And, like I said, when the players crack open a West End draft tomorrow night, I said, well, you're drinking West End draft because that's finals beer, right? If you win, and it'll be the best beer you'll ever drink.
Exactly right. The chimney is a great place to be.
Yep.
Bass, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Thanks for being so open and honest too. It was fascinating to get an understanding of what makes you tick inside your head there to make you such a great coach.
Cheers.
Well, thanks so much for listening. And if you love what you've heard, you can subscribe to the Soda Room podcast. You can write a review if you like and share the show with your friends. Just before we go, a big thank you to our friends at Wavell Hyundai, a family-owned dealership with a friendly, experienced team who genuinely care about their customers. Wavell Hyundai has got the best range you've ever seen. So if you're looking for a family car, Hyundai's range has got you covered. Everyday options to getting around town to big, spacious SUVs like Drive's Car of the Year, the Santa Fe. Comfort, safety and space for the whole family. Go and visit the team at Wavell Hyundai. You can find them just opposite the Adelaide Showgrounds on Goodwood Road. Wavell Hyundai, driven by Australian Motors.